All right. Hello, everybody. Just 1 second. Hi, Antoine. Hi, Monica.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. 1 second to pull up the deck. Great. Awesome. All right. Welcome, everybody, to this webinar. Today, we'll be talking about optimizing leads and conversions with Cognism and Lean Data. So today, I have Monica Babakan with me and Antoine Cornet from Lean Data and Cognism, respectively. And I am Christopher Gergosian from Cognism. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Great. All right. So in this webinar, what you will learn. We'll learn the cost of lead leakage, lead routing best practices, how to improve your speed to lead, and lead enrichment. And we're going to be starting with the cost of lead leakage. Oh, excuse me. So Monica, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Yeah, of course. So I think first it's important to cover, what is lead leakage. I know we hear this term lead leakage, revenue leakage. What does it actually mean, right? So I think when I think about lead leakage, it's just simply leads not being followed up with, or maybe you have duplicate leads in your system, so that when a lead does come in, if there's a dupe, then it can result in inconsistent communication, or even a lack of prioritization when leads are coming in. Maybe your company doesn't have any sort of segmentation or personalization or a real strategy around how you're following up with leads. And so when all of that happens, I think about lead leakage. So what does that mean? It's a real cost to the business, both from an internal and external perspective. So when you're thinking about the internal cost to your business, you can run into, a lot of manual time and effort spent by your sales team trying to, figure out which lead to follow up on if you're not merging duplicates correctly, or trying to find the right data if you're not enriching, your leads properly. And just overall disjointed processes that results in a lot of wasted time that your reps could be doing something else or more meaningful to the business, which, of course, ultimately results in lost revenue or, decreased ROI on marketing efforts. But then from an external perspective as well, you think about the buyer journey. If you're not following up on leads, or if you have that disjointed process that I talk about, it can really damage your reputation, right? That's the first impression that a prospect or a buyer has when visiting your website and when trying to interact with your team. And if that process isn't seamless, that's hugely detrimental to the reputation and just results in a poor buyer experience, but also gives your competitors a leg up. So you always want to be thinking about the competitive advantage as well. So a lot of results that can be detrimental to your business when it comes to lead leakage.
Yeah, certainly. And that's challenges that Antoine and I face building our initial revenue operations function. So Antoine, I know we have extensive experience, both the good and bad lead leakage ends. So why don't you speak a little bit about it?
Yeah, I can kind of share our experience here at Cognism, because our process has changed quite a lot in the last kind of three years. When 3 years ago, we essentially didn't really have a very structured process in terms of how we were going to route leads and what was the expected follow-up. So, we experienced a lot of it, it kind of showed in our conversion rate, and we also, faced a fair amount of complaint from customer, poor follow-up and not the best customer experience. And we've kind of decided to implement Lean Data. The goal was ultimately to create a process where there was clear accountability on who was meant to follow up. So there was a clear owner like on, okay, I am responsible for following with that lead. We set up clear SLAs. So like, our expectation that you will call within 5 minutes of receiving the lead. If that leads come within business hours, like we set up like email alerts if like after like a certain amount of time we didn't actually like action that NQL. And like also kind of like just created a whole process so that all the sales reps had to do was actually like action, following up with the lead, and there was no like admin or like too much thinking to do on that side. So like pushing those leads directly into outreach sequence or sales love sequence or whatever like sequencing tool that you use, so that again you kind of make sure you stay on top of it. And or just by doing like what seems to be pretty simple, like our conversion rate went through the roof.
Absolutely, and that's something that we experienced firsthand. So it was great seeing. Great. So let's talk a little bit about lead routing best practices. Antoine, you want to start us off with this?
Yeah. So I think with that, there's a few things that you need to kind of think about. Is like, few things, right? Like, how do you segment your go-to-market team? Is like probably the first thing you want to think about. Like, do you have like geographic segmentation? Do you have industry segmentation, company size segmentation? And then like that will kind of tell you, okay, like based on that, do you have a specific team that need to follow up with those leads? And then you also like, if you have this sort of segmentation, you need to think about how are you gonna enrich those leads so that you are actually routing them to the right person, so that the customer is followed up with effectively, and there is like no dispute between reps on this lead should have gone to me, no, this lead should have gone to me. So like that's kind of where I would start. And then there's like obvious ones, which are like, you want to make sure that the lead coming in you want to check whether they're coming in on a customer account versus a prospect account, or whether there's already an open opportunity or non-open opportunity, those sort of things, because they will essentially enter like a different journey, and like the level of follow-up needs to be different, and probably more tailored if you're a customer or there's an open opportunity. So those are the things that you kind of like need to think about.
Absolutely. And would you say that we implemented both those stages at the same time, or do we do it in phases?
No, we did it like in the first instance, from the get-go. That required some Salesforce infrastructure build, like making sure that on the account level, when there's an open up, like so you can read that field, like kind of like very tactical items. But yeah, no, we implemented it straight away.
Great, thank you. Monica.
Yeah. I think some of our lead routing best practices are just some of the fundamentals when I think about, how are we making sure that we're connecting the right leads to the right reps. To me, it's all about matching based on criteria like territory, or maybe a product line, or an industry vertical, or just common characteristics. So I think you really covered it well, Antoine. Like the first step is defining your criteria and defining like how are your GTM teams segmented, how are they structured, and I think this can often be one of the hardest steps, because we love to overcomplicate things. And I think if you can try and take a step back and simplify your business, that will then in turn simplify your lead routing process. So there was a time last year where we had just segmented our teams in a little bit of a way that was maybe overcomplicated. So we took a step back at the end of the year, really thought through like the why are we doing it in this way? And we made some adjustments, and it has completely changed our lead routing process. It has simplified our workflows. It has simplified what we're expecting of the reps. So I think it's like the first step is really defining your criteria. How are your GTM teams structured, and the why behind it? Why are you doing that? Is it going to result in a better customer experience? And if it's not, then it's worth kind of revisiting that concept or that strategy. But for us, we take into consideration things like geographical location or company size, lead source. I think the segmentation then kind of falls next in line after you have that criteria. But then it's also about prioritizing those leads. So if you are not prioritizing leads, and if you're following up with leads, all of your leads in the same way, that's just not going to result in like the most efficient process. So here at Lean Data, we have a priority system. We call it our P1s and our P2s. So all of our P1s are our hand raisers. These are the folks who are likely most ready to buy. They're submitting a demo request page or a contact us form. They are, asking for the time of our sales team. And so we route those differently than our P2s, which is priority 2. They have a 10-minute SLA. So we have a very tight window for reps to follow up. That's the concept of speed to lead, of course. And then if there is a missed SLA, we have Lean Data escalating those leads to management and sending an alert to the team so that we can ensure that timely follow-up. So that's how we manage our P1s, and then our P2s, we route based on 2 things. So one is lead score. So really thinking about like that demographic data, title, persona, company. We try and, create our lead score based on our ICP. But then also, we think about the lead score, but then as well, what are the activities and the types of engagement that lead is doing? So we kind of marry the two, the score, which is really like a fit score, if you will, and then the intent score. And once that lead then becomes qualified, that's when we escalate those P2s to our team, because we want to make sure that we are bubbling those up at the right time and not just giving every single lead who is doing something on our website or looking at any piece of content to our team. That's just not the right thing for us to do for our business. So it really is all about prioritizing, segmenting, and the feedback loop, right? So constantly revisiting, like, is what we're doing working? Having a solid tracking and reporting mechanism so that we can go back and make changes as needed.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And one thing you said that I really liked is about focusing on the ideal customer experience. So making sure that the experience that the customer is going through fits their best need. And generally, if you do that, the conversion rate will follow for your business. So it's a mutual win. So sometimes a lead will have to go through an extra layer of qualification just to ensure, like, hey, they need that extra conversation, or sometimes they're just purely ready to speak directly to a sales rep. So I think if you focus really on the customer experience, it will help all aspects. And that leads into another phrase you said, which I really like, which I learned from Lean Data: speed to lead. So how to improve speed to lead? And if you want to start with this one, Monica.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, speed to lead, we all know that it increases conversion rates. It fosters that positive customer experience. But it really is important. I mentioned earlier, having that competitive advantage. If you are the first to respond, it's more likely that you will have a more positive experience down the line when, opening a deal, when working that deal. But I think when we think about speed to lead, it's obviously important that we're reaching out in a timely manner, but we also want to balance that, I think, with with other things in the business. So making sure that we follow up in a timely manner, but that we're also personalizing and reaching out in a way that makes the most sense. And I think that's where Lean Data for us has been really critical. You mentioned it earlier, Antoine. It's like, well, if a lead comes in at a customer account, we of course would not want an SDR to follow up on that, right? We want to route that to the matched account owner, or maybe the account manager at that account, or maybe there's a lead coming in from a particular industry, and we want to treat that lead in a different way. So I think it's a balance of the speed to lead, but also having that context and bubbling that context up to your rep so that they have the right information, and kind of building that into your lead process, whether it is a tool like Lean Data or something else. So yeah, I just think it's definitely a balance. You want to have the right enrichment tools to get that information, to get that data to your team. You want to have a solid system for actually going through all of the logic and the rules that make the most sense for your business, because timely follow-up with the right information and the right message really is like the winner here.
Absolutely. Antoine, what is your experience with improving
No,
speed?
I completely agree with Monica. Balancing like relevance versus speed is also super important. Like there are tools like Lean Data that integrate with Outreach. So, like in theory, you could automatically route a lead to someone and then like send them an automated email sequence. That would mean like you actually reach out to the lead in like minutes. Doesn't mean it's like going to be super relevant or that's necessarily what the customer wants. So again, yeah, it's about finding that balance. So I would say like, yeah, speed to lead is important, but make sure you engage with like context, and like it's also actually about like when you will actually speak to the customer rather than trying to reach to them. So like again, having tools like that enable like a prospect that's highly qualified to directly book time with like someone at the company, like that also kind of like change the game in terms of like providing a better customer experience and making sure you reach the customer when they want to be reached.
Yeah, that's a huge one, actually. It's like, when do you present a calendar to a lead? Is it to everyone? Probably not, because that might not mean that you're allowing the most qualified leads to book time on your sales team's calendar. So having some sort of system or logic or tool that can go through all of the criteria and only present a calendar, for example, maybe if it's at a sales-owned account, or if it's an open opportunity or a customer. And then maybe don't present a calendar if it's a lead that needs a little bit more qualification from an inbound SDR or somebody like that. So yeah, I think that's a big one, is the scheduling process is very important.
Yeah, and I think both of you touched on a very important point there. It's a balance between getting the speed right and getting the context behind the reach out right? Like you can reach out to a lead within a couple seconds with an automated email or a phone call with zero context behind it. But if it's enriched and presented with the right data, so it's like, oh, I know it's a customer account, right? So it's like, oh, you must be calling for this reason. Like that's a much better customer experience than just racing to the phone and being like, hey, what is it I can help you with, in my opinion. Great. All right, lead enrichment. So this is something that we've recently been working on at Cognism. So Antoine, do you want to start with the experience and how important it is to be enriching leads for routing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess Monica kind of just touched on that. Is like, when do you want to show a calendar? And at that point, like enriching leads is super important, and it needs to be done in a matter of seconds, because you essentially, as someone submit a form, you need to be able to make a data-driven decision on like, is that person qualified enough to warrant automatically getting access to an A calendar, or maybe it goes to an SDR because it's not as qualified, or maybe it's like we deem that person to be a spam, or like not necessarily that needs to be further qualified, and then they will actually not be presented a calendar. So again, it's about balancing the quality of the data, like of the underlying data that you're enriching with, as well as the speed of enrichment. So getting both of those things right is critical to, I guess, provide the best customer experience and the most optimal speed to lead.
Makes sense. And from your lens, Monica?
Yeah, I mean, lead enrichment and just the overall concept of enrichment has been so important in our business. I think the biggest thing is it has helped us define our ICP in a really like targeted, strategic way that then plays into our entire lead routing process and helps us make decisions. So I think data enrichment is just so critical, and in targeting and segmentation and the lead qualification process, and like I said, the ICP process has just been so important for us because if you can analyze your existing customers using enrichment data and then play that back into your lead routing process to use the enrichment data that you get and then make decisions based off of, what are our most successful customers doing? What do they look like? And then how can we treat our leads and route our leads in the proper way is really critical. So I think being able to find the right data enrichment provider too is important. You want to make sure, you're able to instantly enrich that data. You're able to schedule enrichment jobs. So having that flexibility is really important for your business.
Certainly. We've reached the end of our slides here, but I think that's a good thing because hopefully there are some questions, because this is such a key topic. I know that every improvement that we made in our lead routing and our speed to lead, adding enrichment, has added millions to our top line. So hopefully some of the audience has some questions. So as Harry said, if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat, because I think this is critical experience to learn from on this panel. And we'll just give it a minute while hopefully some questions pop up. Just while we're waiting, anything else, Antoine, Monica, from you on speed to lead, lead enrichment, lead conversion? Again, Antoine, I know this was a big part of our achievements from 2023, just raising the MQL to meeting attended rate with some very minor tweaks, including like direct lead routing to AEs, for example, cutting out the marketing development rep where we felt appropriate because there was not a need for an extra level of qualification. Do you want to speak on any of our personal experience with anything specific?
Yeah, so I think the first one you've touched on is make it as hassle-free for the prospect as possible, in the sense that if your ICP is your ideal persona is like, I don't know, a VP of product, and a VP of product at like the best type of account you can dream of, like comes inbound, you probably don't want to make them go through different hoops to actually speak to see a demo of your product. You want to get them straight away, fast track them. So I'd say like that's probably the first operating principle that you should have. Getting the compensation plan as well, in terms of like who's responsible for following up with leads, is like very important. I'd say in the SDR world, like making sure there's the right incentive and strike a good balance between making it challenging but achievable. That also went a long way for us.
And from your experience, Monica, yep.
Oh, I was just going to ask a question. I mean, it sounds like you all made a lot of progress last year. I'd be curious, like what teams were involved, what stakeholders, who did you like cross-functionally collaborate with to make it a success?
that might sound cliche, like pretty much everyone. It was with, marketing was obviously involved, RevOps / marketing ops, sales development. It's because it touches so many parts of your business. Like if you don't really have alignment, or that's not gonna work.
Yeah, it was finance as well, because there were multiple aspects that went into it. Like it was changing the infrastructure, changing the process, changing when we route to who, changing the compensation between to drive the right behavior, to change the behavior at certain touch points. And so we had to get buy-in from all involved, and it really helped us a lot.
Very cool. Yeah, that alignment is so important. It makes me think about the book Busting Silos by the two Snowflake employees. Such a good book on how to align sales and marketing, and just the cross-functional collaboration is so important. But yeah, for us, I mean, we're so tightly aligned with our marketing team. I'm on the RevOps team, and I think a big part in driving that success is just the constant communication and like never assuming anyone knows anything. So we meet weekly every Monday, and then a few times every other week for different project, initiatives and everything. But it's a constant feedback loop. I think you have to build in that feedback loop to provide input on lead quality. How effective is our content? What is working? What isn't working? And then as well, like for the sales reps, like what is our outreach strategy? So we have a specific outreach content committee, and we're constantly analyzing the messaging that is going out to our leads and how we're responding to them. What is our open rate, our click rate? Well, what are the resources that are really resonating with our leads, and how can we incorporate that more into our lead strategy? So constant feedback loop, communication is key. We all know that, but yeah, the alignment is very important.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things about being in RevOps, is that you have to deal with most key stakeholders at a company and bring everyone together around problems and solutions as well.
Exactly.
Great. We have a couple of questions in the chat. So we'll start with Ben. So Ben is asking, how do we ensure that SLAs are met for lead follow-up, and what tools do we do to do this? So Antoine, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so in terms of ensuring SLAs, there's a bunch of, like, again, I'm going to try and answer that question very tactically. There's like different tools that you can leverage. Lean Data as an out-of-the-box like kind of SLA function, so that's something that can be used. You can also build some logic in Salesforce as to whether like a lead has been actioned after they submitted like a form, and then build like email alerts, again using Salesforce. I imagine HubSpot would work similarly. In terms of tools, again, well, being at Cognism, of course, that's the tool we would be using.
Great. And from your side, Monica?
Yeah, I mean, we use our own tool, Lean Data, to ensure SLAs. So I kind of touched on it earlier, but that priority system that we have, our P1s versus our P2s, really makes it super cut and dry and straight to the point of how do we follow up with leads? What are the SLAs? It's a 10-minute SLA for P1s, a 48-hour SLA for P2s, and then we use our Lean Data workflow, our graph to listen for that activity. Is a sales rep following up? Yes or no? If there's no follow-up within that SLA timeframe, we bubble that up, we escalate it to the manager, and then we have a reporting system in place. It's in Salesforce. It's a dashboard, really easy to monitor. But we've been doing that for a while now, and it's a really solid process. But I think if you can use tools like Lean Data or any sort of process to measure and understand, why is this happening and how can we really diagnose the root cause of it, I think will go a long way.
And can I ask, how did you arrive at those SLAs? Was it trial and error? Like, what made those SLAs the right ones for P1, P2?
Yeah, well, our P1s, it was pretty easy to decide. 10 minutes. It's a quick follow-up time. That was even before my time at Lean Data. The 48-hour one was definitely trial and error. It was shorter, but especially after we did some work on our lead scoring model and really narrowing in our our time or our qualification process, we did realize that the 48 hours made sense. It was just, again, like the feedback loop and constantly reviewing the process. It's something that you don't just set and forget. You have to, be looking at it weekly, discussing with your marketing team, really poking holes in, the bottlenecks and who's doing really well, who needs a little bit of help, when, why. So it's just that constant analysis that helped us get there.
And I think that's a really key question from Ben about how do you ensure that the SLAs are being met? Because without a tool like Lean Data and or Salesforce, I remember a few years, probably 5 years back for Cognism, when we'd have our part out forms just come to a certain inbox and the MDR would respond actioned within X amount of time. And that's how we measured SLA. And if nobody responded, we would all be like, is this actioned? And that's how we tracked. So Ben, I understand the pain that can cause if you're running a similar system. So using a system like Lean Data certainly helped relieve us of that problem.
Yeah, 100%. I was in a role a few years back. I didn't have Lean Data, and all of our leads came in through Slack. And we asked everyone to just do like a thumbs up emoji if they had followed up. So not the most efficient, reps forget to do that or what have you. But yeah, it's been really a game changer ever since having Lean Data, because all the communication is funneled through our sales engagement tool, whether it's, an outreach or a sales loft or HVS or anything like that. And then all of our activity is tracked automatically. And then Lean Data listens for that. So it's a process that doesn't take a lot of time on the RevOps team to manage. It just kind of works in the background. So it selfishly gives me more time to work on other strategic projects.
Absolutely. Exception reporting is a lot better than chasing down SLA on every single lead.
Yes.
Great. All right. Harry has a question. What experiments would you advise to run to optimize speed to lead or lead leakage? Antoine, I think we could kick off with some of our experiments.
Yeah, I think it's. I think we've touched on a few of those experiments, but I'll go over them here. Again, like having the direct, calendar, showing the calendar of someone, really truly is probably the most important things you can do in terms of improving your conversion rate. Again, setting up a very robust, well thought out graph in Lean Data and pushing things into outreach or sales loft to make sure you're essentially asking your sales rep to just action task and look at the customer and see what value we can add to them rather than doing admin is a big one. Then other experiments we've run the last year, one of them was whether we would allow free emails, someone with a Gmail account or whatnot to submit forms. So it's doing a lot of A/B testing. For example, for us, we realized that allowing free emails was actually not a good thing because the conversion rate wasn't so good. And actually, if we had a business email, we could enrich properly and we could give a better experience to that person.
Great, thank you. Monica, from your end, any
Yeah,
experience you'd like to discuss?
yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what I was touching on earlier. It's well, first think about what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What are your end goals? If you're feeling the need to run experiments, is there something that is not working in your process? And what exactly is that? And just kind of go back to the drawing table a little bit and bring in folks from the right teams to map that out and do that root cause diagnosis. And then just going back to your criteria of establishing the clear criteria for how leads should be handled and rethinking, going back to the why. I've been talking about this a lot on this webinar, but going back to the why of why you're doing things is, I think, just can be very eye-opening and can start to make you think about things in a different way. It's like, well, if you keep asking, why are we doing this? Why does it matter? How does it impact the customer? Then maybe you can get to the real reason around why you even want to improve the process in the first place. And then I think from there, you can run A/B tests and really be specific around what it is you're trying to accomplish. So I think that, there's a great example mentioned earlier of when to present a calendar versus not. Maybe you present calendars to everyone, see how that goes. Or maybe you present calendars only for specific form fields that are being filled out. Maybe it's just for the demo request pages. Or maybe you only present calendars for certain product interest, or after you've, enriched your data and you have now more information to make better decisions. So I think it is all about that A/B testing and giving yourself time to really let it run through and see if it's a success or not. And starting with a hypothesis. I think when we run experiments, we oftentimes don't start with okay, here's what I'm hoping to accomplish. Here's what success looks like. So defining all of that in the beginning, and then meeting with your teams, your different GTM functions to review their process and see if it worked.
Great. It seems like we have no more questions. So I would like to thank everyone for joining this episode of the RevOps Review. A big topic for us that has moved our top line millions with successful experiments. So this is something that deserves time from the RevOps function. And Lean Data and Cognism are a great team with enrichment and routing. So Monica, thank you. Antoine, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.